Hi, welcome back. It's Rachel, and it's really nice to have you join me for another book talk. Today, I'm going to focus on one specific book. I always meant to discuss this book in June, and in light of recent events, it seems like it's quite timely. There are two reasons I wanted to highlight this book. One is because in June, on June 19th, we have Juneteenth, which is a celebration for Black people in the United States, um, for the Emancipation Proclamation, since um, Black people in Texas did not receive word of Emancipation Proclamation until the end of the Civil War. And so Juneteenth is a time of celebration for that. The other is because June is Pride Month. It ends up being in June because it's commemorating the Stonewall riots, which occurred in the 70s. And so the book that I have selected has to do with a young Black man who is questioning his sexual identity. He lives in the South, and he is also dealing with difficult emotions, which was a topic that I picked for last week. And I had considered adding it to the ones from last week, but uh, I decided to keep this one separate just because of a lot of things that are happening this month. And I'm glad that I did, because there's a lot more going on in our country right now. And I think that this is a book of healing. I think it is a book of hope. And ultimately, I think it's a book that is very timely for a lot of people um, who are out there. So I hope that you take a look at this. I know that people have very strong reactions to things that have to do with LGBTQ+. I respect your opinions, and so if this is something you don't want to watch, you don't need to. However, I do strongly, personally feel that the more that we're able to understand about other people's differences, the more we're able to respect each other. So I do hope you stick around, and maybe you will find something that is worthwhile. So maybe you just like seeing me. So that being said, let me introduce you to Kacen Callender's King and the Dragonflies. Their book just sincerely touched me. And before I begin, I need to give a shout out to a few people. First of all, Libro FM. And if you're unfamiliar with this Audible source, in which you can get audiobooks, I just want to thank them because they provide librarians with the opportunity to get free Audible books early that we can listen to. And this was one of the ones I did receive. And it was on my queue, but I moved it up in my queue. And so this is my next thank you, because of Jason Reynolds. During his Instagram reading aloud from his newest book, he said, "This is a book you all got to read." And so this became my next in the queue. And I want to thank both of them very much because I listened to this book and I loved it so much. I had to own the physical book in addition. I needed it in the other medium. And so lastly, I do want to thank Kacen Callender. Thank you. I appreciate that you wrote this book. It has touched me very much, and it is one that I will continue to read again and again. So King is our protagonist, and our protagonist, as I already mentioned, lives in Louisiana in the Deep South in a very small town. I don't think I need to describe the setting of what it would be like to be a young black man in the South. I would not know what that would be like, but I think for most of us in this country, we can imagine. And the book opens, I'm not going to describe how it happened, but the book opens and know that his older brother, Khalid, is dead. His family is made up of both his mother and father, who are still together, his brother, who has just passed a few months before, and then King. And by the way, King hates his name because guess what his last name is? James. He gets to be King James. Isn't that fantastic? His full name is Kingston, but he goes by King. And so he loathes his name. So we learn that about him almost right away. In addition to the death of his brother, his beloved brother, King is in middle school. His brother was in high school. And they shared a room, and Khalid was everything to the whole family. And I think one of the reasons it's important to bring this up is that every single person in Khalid's family, in King's family, is responding to this loss. Okay, this incredible dynamic figure that is described as lighting up an entire room, intelligent, charismatic, funny, loving, differently. No one's necessarily making dinner. Like it sometimes happens, it sometimes doesn't. Mom wrapped in their grief, dad wrapped in his grief, King his own. And so the parents don't even notice when he's coming and going. Like he's driven to school by dad, but when he comes home, they're not even necessarily noticing. Um, as I've mentioned before, if you watched the previous book talk, is it bad parenting? No, I'm going to say no, because again, grief is one of those horrible, strange monsters that overtakes us. And it isn't so much that they're bad parents, it's that they are completely blinded by what is happening in their own lives. And so King is left to sort of sort through all of these emotions himself, okay? And one of the things, too, and the Dragonfly plays a huge role in this, is that King strongly feels that his brother has transformed. Part of it is that Khalid would have these long discussions with him. He loves science, about transformation and how things would transform in nature from one thing to another. And when he died, a dragonfly came, landed on his casket, and King thought, my brother is transformed. So again, in our grief, he's looking for a way to still capture his brother, right? To still have his brother near him. And when he dreams, he hopes to see Khalid every night. Sometimes it's just things that they talked about. Sometimes it's just Khalid, he's imagining new things. But he feels it's Khalid trying to reach out to him. I think most of us can who have lost somebody can completely connect to this idea. And so what King ends up doing on the way home from school is he'll go by the bayou. And there's dragonflies everywhere. Can you imagine this? Yeah. Um, and he waits for one to come to him. I'm just going to take a moment there for that. All right? He waits for one to come to him. Because that would be Khalid. So grief is one part of this story. But there's more. Racism is rampant. Okay? And the sheriff of the town is a white man. And he comes from a long line of people who are openly members of the KKK. His oldest son, it's made very clear, has committed a crime that resulted in a black man's death, and nothing was ever done. His youngest son, though, is King's closest friend, one of his closest friends. And one of the things I like about this too is the idea that just because your family is a certain way doesn't mean you yourself have to be a certain way. But there's more to this. Now, I'm not going to reveal because I want you to read, right? But this friend's name is Sandy, and he has his own problems that he is struggling with, which King doesn't entirely see or recognize because he's going through his own stuff, right? One of the stuff that he's going through is he's questioning his own sexual identity. And before Khalid passes, Khalid hears it. He knows it. And he says, you can't be black and gay. You can't be both these things. Okay? Because, it's all, you already got like strikes against you because you're black. You're going to act gay on top of that? In the South? When did I tell you about how King feels about Khalid? Khalid knows everything. So all this questioning and feelings is just shoved. Okay, it's just shoved. And then Khalid dies. There's this sense of, I need to honor that. I need to not question this. The journey of what King goes through in not just grieving, but also questioning who he is, how he feels, is complicated. Now, lest you think this is all going to be some kind of downer, it isn't. King has a group of friends, and they're wonderful and they're funny, but there's also a little bit of a mystery that happens. Someone disappears, and nobody knows where they are. And people start to look. King becomes involved in that. But the entire time, remember I said, like, emotions aren't necessarily just one thing. King is still trying to heal from all of these things. And he's still trying to find Khalid, right? Because Khalid's the one with the answers. So what I appreciated about this book is there aren't any easy answers, in life. It'd be great if there were. Randomly, totally off topic. Uh, I work in a high school, and I have a lot of students where it's like, so where are you gonna go next, right? Or what you gonna work? You gonna go to college? What college? And I can't tell you how many of the students that I work with go, just something along those lines of what's next, right? Um, there's a lot of answers in life that just aren't easy. And when you're starting to talk about who you are and how do you move forward in your life when somebody is gone, and how does your family move forward when important pieces of who they are aren't there anymore, everything becomes different. Okay. And what I appreciate about what Kacen has done is they have presented a situation that is messy, okay, in a place that can be messy, where rules can sometimes not apply, where what is justice doesn't always necessarily happen. And it's quite clear that King realizes that he has been taught by his parents what it means to be a young black man in the South, and it's been reinforced by Khalid. Um, he's also been taught what it means to step outside of the box and question if you're LGBTQ plus, and what does all of that mean? And that's shut down really fast, especially if you're combining that with being somebody who is a color. Folks, he is in middle school. This is a lot to put on anyone, let alone someone who's young. But I also love the beautiful imagery of transformation too, and what he is searching for. And I think that when important things leave us, we look for that kind of transformation. We look for some sort of answers. I love that when he goes to sleep at night, he looks for Khalid. Um, I think that a lot of that is normal when it comes to grief. And um, what I really love about this too is there is hope and there is support in this book for King. Um, it's not, and it's messy too. It's not perfect, um, but I also think is real. It's honest and real. Um, so King and the Dragonflies, Kacen Callender, you rock. For those of you who are interested, Kacen's debut is Hurricane Child, and it was the winner of the Stonewall Book 2019, amongst other things. And I hope that this is a book that many of you check out, even if it's not the kind of book you would normally read. And if it's not one that you check out, I appreciate if you stayed and you listened. All of us are on different journeys. Remember how important your journey is. Remember how important your story is. Remember to have compassion and kindness toward others. Until then, keep reading. Thank you.